Hey team, welcome to Benchmarked. Thank you for joining us today. Coach Mess here along with Coach LaRock. We have a great show lined up with you, and that is because we have someone with us who I cannot wait to catch up with. She is a tremendous person, an amazing talent, and an outstanding leader. And quite simply, probably one of the best character people I have ever met. Her abilities are so unique. She was able to excel at hockey for 4 years in the Syracuse women's hockey program. And now she's switched gears and she's on the University of North Carolina's rowing team where she's pursuing her master's degree in sports administration. In her time at Syracuse, she was involved in many community service initiatives for fellow athletes. She's been a leader in diversity and inclusion and has since been nominated as NCAA Woman of the Year. And maybe best of all, she's a Northern girl. Kristen Siermachesky, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today, all the way from sunny University of North Carolina.
Well, that's quite the intro. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're a bit of a big deal. You're a big deal. I said, when I said to Lauren, I was like, guess who's going to be on the show tonight? She's like, who? I said, I'll give you a hint. Tall blonde, cake pops. And she was like, oh my God. So JG, when I think Lauren was in grade 8 when Kristen was playing hockey for me at Nelson, and Lauren would come and skate with the girls. Kristen's like, don't worry, I'll go get her. So she'd go to the elementary school, pick up my kid, and they'd let her go. I'm like, just let her go.
That was the best. So much fun.
Classic.
Yeah. So
I'm glad you did the intro because I would have butchered that last name so hard.
Well, I have to throw a shout out. Like, obviously, you're a talented athlete, and that comes from your family. And before I forget, like, your parents were both amazing athletes. I know your dad was a national level high jumper in the Pan Am Games. Mom ran track at Western, right? I believe.
Yes.
So I mean, it's got to come to you naturally. That like, and you multi-sport athlete. Like, here's a. We always love to promote our multi-sport athletes because I remember when you were at Nelson, you did a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. You're not just a hockey player, and now.
Yeah, well, I'll never forget the first time I played field hockey at Nelson. Hadn't done that up north, so that was really fun. And then, of course, in back in New Liskeard, my parents really wanted me to pursue what they did and do track and field. And I really liked hockey more than anything. But I ended up going to OFSA, and I got 2 medals at OFSA for the 800 and discus, the most random events, but it was quite the experience.
That's so cool.
Discus was throwing rocks at the lakes in New Liskeard. It was just, that's what you're used to. That's why. Pretty
much. I got home. So I moved when I was in grade 9, I moved to Nelson, lived in Burlington. And when I went home the summer of grade 9, that's when I started to learn how to throw a discus. And I think I had like a month before OFSA to learn how to throw it. And it just flew. It just worked. So I wasn't going to fight it. We just did it.
Just an athlete. I love it. So like, let's backtrack because I haven't talked to you for 3 or 4 years now. So Syracuse, you had a great career at Syracuse. The team went to the tournament. You guys made it. I remember you guys went to the playoffs. You guys had a great time there. I remember you were you're a career defenseman. And I remember, I think you came home and like, they moved me to forward. And you accept that. And a lot of the things that we talk about is adapting and evolving and accepting challenges. And how did you, I remember that when that happened. And I mean, you were an amazing defenseman. And I remember, the circumstances they needed you at forward. And you ended up filling in and had a great career as a forward. Tell me how you worked through that adversity and how that's kind of been a cornerstone in your success as you've gone through all the stages of your life.
Yeah. I mean, I think even before changing from defense to forward, I will say the struggle of freshman year was just so real. I think just having to embrace being a good teammate by sitting on the bench sometimes was not something that anyone's used to. Coming into a great Division I program, we're all used to, we're recruited. We're all used to being stars of some sort. So I think even before changing from defense to forward, it was the struggle of just figuring out that like, okay, I'm not on every second shift. That's not how it's going to be. I have to work my way there. So, and I think that's kind of where the position switch came into play. It was like, you're probably going to get more playing time at forward. We need you there. And I was hands down going to do whatever it took for the team. But I was I was kind of freaking out a little bit. I'd been studying to the point, everything about every face-off from the defensive side. And then all of a sudden, throw you into forward. So, and that's how it worked. It was, honestly, I remember it's a very old barn and had like wooden roof. I can't even remember which one it was, but my coach came up to me and he's like, so did you check out the plays from forward's perspective? And I'm like, no, did I? Yeah, get looking. That was my cue that I was playing forward.
Amazing.
So I will never forget. And I just went downstairs, looked at all the face-offs, started figuring out, okay, where do I need to be? All these crazy things. And it just came down to the fact that like, that's what the team needed. That's what I needed to do, and embraced it.
We always say, and it's crazy because we were talking about before the show, how, things happen to you and it's just like, you just take care of it. And then we always say things happen for you, not to you. And then you went on and you had an amazing career. And, beyond the hockey, and I know there's lots of stuff we could talk about the hockey, but I remember watching and following you on social media. You were doing so many things off the ice at Syracuse. And to me, that always made me proud, knowing that the type of person you were involved in the community right away. Tell us a little bit about how you got started doing that, why, what was the motivation behind that, and share with us some of the amazing things that you were able to do. I'm pumping your tires here, but I want to hear all the amazing things that you did at Syracuse.
Okay, well, I mean, it all started as soon as I got to Syracuse, I thought, okay, I'm just going to kind of focus on school and hockey. And, you don't have much time, so you're trying to figure out all those things to start. And one of my teammates, Lindsay Eastwood, she was always like kind of like my big sister right off the hop. So anything she did, I would, try to mimic her. She was a great defenseman. And off the ice, on a Wednesday night, she's like, Kristen, I'm going to SAC. I'm like, I don't know what SAC is, but there was free pizza, so I'm going to go. Any free meal was great. So I went with her, and it was a student athlete advisory committee. And I met, there's 2 representatives from every team at Syracuse, and it's pretty much it's the student athlete voice. So we have the opportunity to, change legislation at the NCAA level. We have a vote, like we have all these super important things as a student athlete. So as a freshman, I'm seeing that for the first time. It was mostly about meeting people. But then when I figured out the different impact that you can have on the school and the community through those things, I was like, yeah, I want to do this. So my sophomore year and my junior year, I just kept going and I was really involved. I became like a committee head. We have a bunch of different committees, like community service committee, social media, kind of different campaigns that we were doing. And from there, it just kept going. And then my senior year, I ended up being the president of SAC. So we got to do so many different initiatives in the community. We, at Syracuse, during the time of social unrest, we actually conducted our first ever Black Athletes Lives Matter March. So we pretty much shut down the whole side of campus that was for athletes and had every single athlete marching by team with signs. It was COVID, so we had to separate it. We had to make schedules. We had transit involved so they could block the cars.
Wow.
We just tried to make the biggest impact we could in any way possible. So
and that's a big school.
Yeah, that was
huge. There's a ton of athletes at Syracuse. That's a big athletic department. So that's not a small task.
And I think one of the most important parts, and I mean, that's just the student athlete advisory committee, but it was student run. These were things that students cared about. We wanted to go work with the Boys and Girls Club, and we wanted to go see underprivileged schools and bring them books and, teach them how to play different sports that they don't have the opportunity to play. So we always kind of did things that we felt were impactful instead of, getting told what to do that will help someone. It was a lot of things that we actually wanted to do. So that was one thing. And then junior year, a couple student athletes came to SAC and said, we need to have more of a diversity and inclusion committee. So instead of making a committee, we actually made a whole other group. So a total separate group. I was the vice president of that group, and it was the diversity and inclusion student athlete board. So same type of thing, but everything to do with diversity and inclusion issues on that front. So that started evolving, and SAC and DSOB, we called it, kind of mashed together to just have a huge impact on the community. And then at the same time, I was super involved in the fellowship for Christian athletes, where I soon became the captain of that group too. So
people recognized your leadership skills, right? Wherever you went, which is.
I battled so hard with one that as soon as you said that, it made me think of, I was the president of SAC, and that was my passion. I mean, I got to know all these student athletes, make an impact. And then when the diversity and inclusion group kind of opened up and came to fruition, they're like, we need leadership. And I'll never forget when one of the administrators said, Kristen, you need to do this. I was like, I'm super passionate about this, but my time is so thin.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. And it just turned out that people started asking me questions. People were turning to me, and I couldn't not. I had to.
It took a life of its own. It just evolved, right?
Exactly. So I'm very, very happy I did, but.
So cool. And to me, this is where it gets interesting, because you were doing a lot of this during very challenging times, like social, like you say, some social unrest was going on, COVID, like that. To me, we another thing that we talk about all the time is it's easy to be a leader when it's nice and easy and there's no challenges going on. The bullets aren't flying, that stuff. You stepped up when your team needed you the most, when your school needed you the most, and the community needed you the most, which is a testament to your leadership, which is amazing. And then, of course, I see master's degree in sports administration. Makes sense. Were they connected? That's what I wanted to ask you next. And I feel like we're going to jump all over the timeline of your last 6 or 7 years here, but what did one lead to the other?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot from the administrators at Syracuse. I think I learned the power that they do have and the power that they don't have. And I kind of figured out that I was already in sport management. So I was learning a lot about pro sports mostly. But I really learned that I wanted to work in college athletics. I wanted to have the impact that those administrators had on me. You know, they were empowering us as students to do what we wanted to do, to impact the people we wanted to impact. And that's what I want to be. And that's my overall arching goal, is to be an athletic director one day. So
wow.
I think I feel like at Syracuse and here at UNC also, like, it's very student athlete centered. But I know there's a lot of schools and institutions that aren't. So I feel like if there's a place I could have an impact, it would be to make those things student athlete centered.
And that's another thing, is we always like to say you want to be athlete led, not coach fed. So if it's top down, you're not going to have as much success as if it's from bottom up, right? So like you look like you're trying to make some changes, which is really cool. Now let's back up again. Chapel Hill, North Carolina. You go from the frozen ice, frozen water, to rowing. Oh my God. How did this come about? This is so cool. Yes, not that I'm surprised, but it's cool.
Yeah. So actually, first of all, senior year at Syracuse, when we talk about like a difficult time to lead, that was probably the craziest time I've ever been in as a leader. COVID, trying to get the season to keep going, but you know, teams are folding left and right. Teams can't compete because they have COVID cases. We were the only team in our conference that didn't have a COVID case till postseason. And
wow,
we were very strict as leaders in terms of like, if you want to play, we need to be serious about this. So we only hung out with our team, and we wanted to do everything possible to get us in a winning position. That was probably the hardest year in terms of leadership.
Wow.
But as soon as senior year was done, of course, there's the awkward offering of a 6th year or a 5th year. And I had those conversations with my coach, and we both kind of agreed that it was time for me to do whatever was next. And I was really thinking about playing in Europe. That was my number one at the time. And then actually one of the administrators at Syracuse said, have you ever heard of this program at UNC Chapel Hill? It's the number one program in the States. They only let in 9 people a year. So we got to get rolling on this application. And I was like, well, you know, I'll apply, but I don't think I'll get in. anyway, the athletic director wrote me an amazing recommendation. Administrators helped out and I got in. And I was like, okay, so I've achieved that dream. Now, what am I going to do in my free time? So I reached out to the rowing coach at the time and I got on the phone with her and she kind of said, okay, like we'd love to have you on our team. We can kind of talk more when you get to campus. So I was kind of frozen there for a little bit. I was like unofficially announced as being on the team, but we weren't too sure. And then that whole coaching staff left. So here I am in an awkward position again. Like, did that commitment mean anything? Am I actually going to be rowing? Is the new coach going to want to teach me how? I don't know. So anyway, it turns out the new coach started calling everyone that was on her list. And the new coach is a mentor, like absolute all-star. She's just amazing. So I get on the phone with Erin and we're having 15-minute conversations with everyone on the team. So we're rushing through everything. And I'm like, do you even want me? Like, I used to be a hockey player. I've never rowed before. I don't know, like, you row backwards. Like, I didn't even know that. And like, I knew nothing. And she's like, yes, Kristen, we want you. We need you. Even if it's not on the water, like we need you as a leader on our team. And I'll never forget when she said that, because I'm like, you know what? Even if I have zero impact on the boat moving, she wants me to have an impact on this team. So got right into it. As soon as we got to campus, brand new coaching staff, she pretty much picked it up from the ground. And again, I was the only one that had never rowed. So there wasn't, normally in rowing, there's like a walk-on season where they teach everyone who's walking on how to row. But well, she's a brand new coach. She didn't want that. I was the only one. So she just threw me in a boat with all these girls that have already rowed and was like, you'll figure it out, Chris, no problem. I was so scared. And the boat is tippy and I don't know how to hold this. I was calling it a paddle. It's called an oar. And anyway, it was the craziest time. And then it kind of just took off from there.
So like how many people in your boat? Like, what is it? Are you doing an 8-person boat?
Yes. So I'm it depends. We row in 8s or 4s.
Okay.
For the most part, we did one race in the fall and I was in the first 8 and the first 4. So,
but you know what? It makes sense. If anybody is listening to this or watching this show and they know you, nobody's going to be like, well, that's kind of surprising. Siermachesky's doing that. Right? Nobody's going to say it because your attitude's amazing. And you know what? I think as being a hockey player, and I'm partial to hockey players, you know what hard work is. You know what pushing your body to the brink of pain is. The training that you need to compete at the NCAA level is. So it's probably not a bad transition. And you're a mature athlete, a mature adult. So why not? You'll work, right? So what do you got to lose?
I still do have to admit, as I was changing sports, I was thinking to myself, like, this can't be much harder than hockey. You know, like a 1-minute shift is, you know, pretty gut wrenching when you're working hard and you're F1 or something. It's pretty hard on the body. Nothing compares.
Really?
It is like, I genuinely was going into it thinking, oh, we'll be good. And it's a whole different beast. Wow. So there are some things, like I was mentally prepared, I was physically prepared, but I just didn't know what it really meant to do that different sport. And obviously now I do. And it's really cool to draw comparisons to hockey and rowing and just the different teams and the dynamics and all that stuff. But it takes a lot to prepare.
That leads me into asking you, because I asked this question to a lot of our guests, especially some of our guests who've transitioned from being a player to a coach. And for you've transitioned from being a member of a certain team to another team. What builds good culture on teams? You've been in a lot of different locker rooms. You've played for a lot of different coaches. I'm sure you've had, and I know that when you were in the area here, you played on winning, successful programs. You've had a lot of experience now. What do you think are some of the cornerstones of creating good culture, in a team, a school, something like that, a locker room?
Yeah. I mean, That's a loaded question, but I think culture has to be driven like from the core. I think once I remember at Syracuse was the first time that we really developed core values. And those are just like buzzwords that you actually believe in. And I think once every single person was on board with a common goal, but believing that we can achieve that goal through these things, it was a game changer. To think that every single person on that team, when the year we won our first conference championship ever, were like devoted to these 3 words: character, discipline, passion. I'll never forget them. They're on every one of our sticks: character, discipline, passion. And it's the same thing here at UNC. We're in the process now from a new coaching staff. We're trying to develop core values. And we just had that initial meeting like 2 weeks ago. And I asked my coach for it. Yeah. I said, I think we need to like figure out what girls actually want to do here. Like, do they want to change the program around? Because that's where it comes from. It's the core. If the girls don't want to do it, if the team doesn't want to do it, then what does it really mean? So that's how I would start.
Jean-Gilles and I talk, we talk about this in a few of our shows, right? About like, you can have those words like character, passion, commitment, all, but what does it mean? Like, you got to define it. So as a teammate, I need to know what character is. Like, I tell you what character is, I know what you know it means, but not everybody has the same benchmark of what that is. That's kind of why we named the show Benchmarked, because it's the standard. What does that mean? What does effort mean? Well, your effort is different than mine, but this is what we want, right? So just have, like, kind of what you were saying, just having the words could be empty if you're not acting on those words, right?
Exactly. And one thing that we did a lot of, and I would encourage anyone to continue to do a lot of, is, yes, you have those words as a team, but what do those words, those words can mean something personally to you too. And for me, like, again, we developed a definition of for the team of character. We developed examples, off the ice, this is what it looks like. On the ice, this is what it looks like. But then I also did it for myself. And, maybe I held myself to like an extra high standard just because that's how I wanted to be. Or maybe I had different examples I wanted to draw out in my head, but really kind of digging into those on a personal level and kind of matching it up with your playing style, I find really can make a big difference too.
I'm going to jump in here, Mark. So one, you have a fan on and we're trying to put the heat in our houses. That's really cool. 2, it looks like you have, I'm just changing gears. It look like you have different gears. Like you're going to go from, I don't know how I'm trying to ask this question, but it looks like you find different gears for different things. When I heard you talk about hockey or transitioning as a leader, or I don't know, I could just see something different in you that you just went from like, hey, I'm having a great day, to like, like I'm dialed in and then I come back out and then I dial back in. How do you do that? And what's that look like? And where's that come from? That's 3 questions. First of all, where does it come from?
Yeah. Where does it come from? I think it
comes. Do you even think you have that? Sorry, I may be labeling you that way. I just feel.
No, you're totally right. I think those gears, if you will, have made me be relatable, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Some people could say, oh, you have two different sides to you. Well, I do. And one is a very like welcoming personal side, but the other is like, are we going to do this type of side? And I think it can be a blessing and a curse, because sometimes it's too intense, back and forth. But I also think it's just been it's been a way that I've been able to understand people better, because there's both sides of that on every single team. And I think those relationships I've been able to kind of cultivate from both of those different gears, if you will, has been helpful at times.
But in leadership, and I'm assuming you've been in these roles from leadership, you've had to adapt your style, your personality, I guess, to be able to fit all the different types of people that work with you. Because if I'm, again, making assumptions, if you're just like, this is black and white, and this is how I am, it's not going to go very far. It'll be more of a dictatorship than anything, but it looks like you've been able to have people work with you and you with people, but it's being able to adapt to the people around you at the same time. And I guess it's different, having to be different types of personalities, but still being true to yourself. Man, that's very confusing, but I guess.
I totally agree. I don't even know if I would say like adapt myself. I think I would just say learn about them. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the time it's more, I try to stay true to myself and maybe like you say, adapt the way I say something or, the strategy that I take to approaching something. But I think it really stems from understanding what they need. And a lot of the time someone does need to be hyped up. So I'll turn that side up. Or someone else will help them out by really being loud to them. And then, you realize that someone else is a more quiet, they need the X's and O's. And so you kind of draw that side out a little bit more. So I think a lot of that does come from really understanding who you're trying to lead at the time also.
Sorry, one mark and I'll let you jump in here.
You're always taking over.
What motivates the motivator? It looks like you're a self-motivated person, but and to motivate others, but people like you also need to be motivated some other way. So is it you get it from someone or something else, or you find ways to self-motivate yourself?
That's a loaded question too. I have always, for some reason, I like to say that I'm self-motivated because I like to say I don't need anyone to motivate me, but I definitely do. I think every single person has their own leadership style and way that kind of pieces everything together. And it just happens that people sometimes will look at me for the overall leadership, but it comes from everyone else. So yes, I'd like to say I'm self-motivated, but I definitely pick up those pieces from everyone else. And I think, sorry, you asked a lot of questions, so I have to give a lot of answers. Okay.
That's good. That's what we're here for. This show is about our guests, not us.
It's not about us.
So I think one of the other big things that I've learned is, and this is super personal, but I would hope, and I know for a fact there's a lot of leaders that feel the same way, is like, I am driven to impact people. Yes, I want to impact, the win at the end of the race or the game, but as my coach said when she was kind of recruiting me, like, if there's anything you can do, if you can impact this team with your character, with your personality, that's enough.
That speaks a lot to the coach that's driven to get better. And she didn't even talk about rowing yet. She didn't even probably, by the sounds of the story you're saying, they didn't even see you row yet.
They didn't even see me.
Wow.
I could have been 4 feet. I could have been a coxswain.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being 4 feet.
Hey, no, I didn't think there's anything wrong. But
hey, listen, this is the tallest person on this call is not you and I, Jean-Gilles.
But no, like, for all she knew, I could have been a coxswain.
Yeah.
I'm a rower. Like, she didn't know anything.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to embarrass you by saying this, but I remember the first day I met you, and you came into our office, and I think you were with Steph Ayers, and she introduced you to us, and you left. Everybody looked at each other like, that is one of the greatest human beings we've ever, and we all fell in love with you within 30 seconds. Oh. And that's the type of energy that you bring to a room, to a team, to the situation that you're in. And I remember when you were graduating, and I want to show you something, by the way. Remember these?
Oh, yeah.
I got my Syracuse hockey shirt too. I was like, I gotta put that on, and I was just like, and I forgot, but I was like, you know what? You were an impact. You left forget about the coasters. But every time I have a coffee, I always think of you when I have a coffee, and I put on the Syracuse coaster. But I was like, you were more of an impact in all of our lives, and we coached you. Like that was the thing. It was just like, hang on, I'm the coach. I'm supposed to be the one. But you were one of those people. You were an energy donor, and it was just like, I think of you. I use the analogy, the 10-80-10, and I'm sure you've heard about that, right? Like the inner 10 and the 80. Mm-hmm. You are like the inner 2. Like that's the way I've always seen you. So like for me to see you doing this stuff, it's awesome. And I mean, we're not surprised by it. Nobody in my family's surprised by it. Nobody that, has ever been around you surprised by it. But again, you circle back, Chanjali, if you've ever met her parents, it's this, and your sister's the same way. Like they give of themselves, the community. It's in your nature. How important has your family, forget about the great genetics, how important has your family been in supporting you in your journey, and not just your sports journey, but your leadership journey?
Yeah, I will say, thank you for all that, by the way. When I was bugging my parents to move from New Liskeard to Stony Creek, my mom was hard no. My mom was like, why would I let my child move away from home when she's going into grade 9? And of course, my mom was going to be my high school principal. Like, she was like, oh, finally I get to watch her all the time. And she was hard no. And it took a lot of convincing. Yes, I made a PowerPoint, I did all these things.
Of course you did.
Yeah. And my mom, our real conversation when we sat down and like had a very adult talk was, she's like, I just want you to be a well-rounded person. I don't ever want you to think you are moving just for hockey. You're going to go to school, you're going to meet friends, you're going to play other sports. And I think that's one thing that's stuck with me forever. I mean, even at Syracuse, yes, I was just focusing on hockey and academics to start. And then I kind of got to develop that well-roundedness as I got comfortable. And it's the same thing here. I started with my program and then rowing. And now I'm kind of, getting into the leadership academy here, helping out a little bit and continuing to kind of evolve that well-roundedness. I don't think I have enough time to myself, but I don't want it. I get that all the time. Take time for yourself, but I will be looking for something to do in that time. So, and that's not for everyone, but I do know myself in that way.
So Syracuse in North Carolina right now. So I'm going to try and summarize and then jump in at any time, any of you. Does it seems to me that you kind of took care of yourself, not in a selfish way, like I got to get my hockey together, I got to get myself together. And I'm thinking from a leadership perspective, or, if whoever's listening, it could be somebody in a business or it could a sport or whatever. You had to take care of yourself before you can take care of others, not in a selfish way, but I'm saying, okay, I got my hockey squared away. I got my academics squared away. Okay, I have 50 minutes of time. I'm willing to give it to whoever. Okay, let's go. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think without sounding selfish, making sure that I had myself squared away means, what that means to me is making sure that what I'm doing is a passion of mine. I think a lot of the time I didn't really get myself into things that I wasn't passionate about. So I think finding those things that you actually like to do, then I could bring people with me. Yeah. Then I could show people the way. I would never, if I didn't love something and didn't really want to do it, I would struggle to bring someone into it or to even explain it to them, to be honest.
So I loved what you said about freshman year, because that was just scary. And again, let alone freshman year of college, freshman year at Nelson in grade 9 in a new community, new city. So can you speak to either, when we say freshman here for listeners, I'll use it as a freshman as it could be your first job. It could be your freshman year in college, university, use whatever context you need here. What's some advice you would give a life freshman?
Yeah. Whew.
We ask the easiest questions on the show.
Yeah. Great. Good thing I have this notebook here,
You have that blue highlighter I saw earlier.
Yeah. Yes. My Carolina blue highlighter. I have a blue one and an orange one.
Are you one of those? I was going to say you have everything color coordinated on a calendar, don't you?
Well, dude, look at her fingernails. Same thing.
Yes. Forget it's a podcast, so not everyone can.
And I'm jealous. That's okay. It's going to be on YouTube too, but I'm jealous. Like, she's got a tan. You and I are sitting here in winter.
Yeah. Anyways. And I saw you wore white. I'm wearing white. And it makes us look even crazier. Anyways, go ahead. Please go back to the freshman thing.
Yes. Freshman. Obviously, depending on what it is, where you're at, I think no matter what, it's staying true to those core values in yourself. I think I don't want to sound like every other person that's been competitive, but like set goals. Even if it's your first year of school, like set a goal of meeting 2 new people, going out to lunch with a new person, like setting little tiny goals, because then you know the feeling of achieving. And I think within setting those goals, you kind of figure out new things that you value. Maybe your core values slightly change or expand as you're going through that time. And you could speak to that as a new job, as a new place of living, like whatever that new thing is. It's really realizing that you're still you. You just have new things to attack. If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. It's so good because it's like, you come into a new situation, and are you going to let the situation control you, or are you going to take control of your situation, which is what we talk about here, right? G, like you control your destiny. You control the controllable. You can put yourself out there, take risks, go test the waters, literally test the waters. Right. And that was good. I was getting,
use that.
Yeah. And figure out how you contribute. And
sorry, before I forget this, I will say being a freshman on the rowing team, as the oldest person on the rowing team, has been really hard. And I say it all the time to the girls. I'm like, and they love to listen to my experiences with hockey and whatever, but I always make sure to like highlight, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I may have one of the faster times, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you help me with this? Like, yes, I may be a leader. I'm not a captain of the team, but the coach speaks to me and refers to me as a captain of the team, but like, I'm not. And she just refers to me as a leader, but I know nothing about the sport. So I just think, as a freshman in life, you might have strengths in one area, but weaknesses in the other, and like, let those live.
Okay. I want to, this might have been a preview for Mark. I wanted to ask this earlier. So successful people have failed more than they've succeeded, right? We talk about this a lot. So, and this is great. You've done amazing things, but for our listeners are saying, well, that can't be me. Like, it just looks all good. I'm not going to lie to you. Everything looks great, but can you share a little bit of the failures that helped you get to the success? Because I think there has to be a lot in some.
For sure. No, I think one funny, I don't know, it's not even funny, but I've never been the star of a team. I've never been the goal scorer. I really haven't. And like, Mess can attest to that. Like, I'm not that person that is always is on the front of the poster. And although I've struggled with that at times, because there's always been a goal scorer or someone like that, I've learned how to embrace that a little bit, but definitely hard sometimes. Other setbacks, like just being the oddball all the time. Moving to Nelson, everybody knew everyone, going into Syracuse, people came in clumps from Ottawa, and I was just, from up north. And so also learning how to embrace being very different. And a lot of the time, college is a tough place to be yourself. And I learned how to say no more than saying yes. And I think that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to learn, is being looked down at for not going somewhere, or being looked down at for not wanting to hang out because I have to do homework. Yeah, people talked about me all the time. Why would she never want to hang out with us? Or why would she? I cared at first. I really did. My freshman year, I wouldn't say no. And then I finally learned that, like, if I want to achieve those goals, it's in my core values to like stay home and do that work. So I think more than anything, a lot of the time, the struggles and the hard things that I've been through have been very to myself or under the rug. And if I have to face them because I know them myself, but it's not very obvious all the time. It's not like yeah, I had knee surgery. That one was very obvious. And that's an average thing that happens to athletes. But like, I didn't have any big, huge, crazy things. It was a lot of just the little things that you kind of learn how to bear with.
And sometimes those are the biggest obstacles, right? Like is
death by
overcoming
1,000
yourself.
cuts, man. Sorry, I cut in there, but like it's death by 1,000 cuts. And that sounds so bad right now, but anyways, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
sure.
and it's interesting that you say this because I've had this conversation with Emma. I remember in grade 11 and 12, like you were more accountable to yourself first, which is tough because you had standards that you want to uphold. It was more important for you to be the best version of yourself than being cool. Being better to you, that was more important than being cool. Yeah. And what I will say is, although I know you were a defenseman, but you weren't the goal scorer, but as a coach who's coached you, if I were to fabricate a team out of the atmosphere, say this is like a Madden game and you get to draft your own team, I'd pick 6 of you because you win with 6 of you. And then I might have a goal scorer because we do have to score goals at some point, but I'd have 6 of you. And the type of people that you are, you're the, what I call, and Jean-Gilles and I were both the same type of athletes, the dirty shirts. You're not getting all the accolades, but you're doing a lot of the work in the background and you're holding yourself accountable. Service over status is what we say, right? You're there to serve yourself, you serve others, and you put yourself second, but you put a lot of pressure on yourself doing that. Yeah. And I'm sure being a female athlete for you, like you're a tall person, you stand out in a crowd and people, you go into some places and people are like, never seen anybody like you before. Your energy, your presence, like that's what it is, right? So they might be intimidated by you until they get to know you. And this is where it seems like you've grown to be okay with that, right?
And I think one of the scariest things is that day when I'm not feeling myself. You know, when every single person, and I won't lie, it doesn't happen that often because it just doesn't. But, you know, that day when I go to practice and not that I'm not feeling practice, but I have a lot of other things on my mind, everyone knows. It's the very first, every person will come ask you what's wrong, you know? Whereas the quiet person in the corner might, you know, someone might never ask them what's wrong. It's happened a total of like 4 times. I remember vividly, like, what's wrong? And there's nothing wrong. I'm just, you know, I'm thinking about something else, or I'm not quite myself today. And that's a big obstacle to get over too.
These are the little things though that we find are important to talk about with people because sometimes they internalize it too much and it weighs them down and it could take away what I call peak performance. And it's not necessarily athletic performance, but just whether it's weighing you down in school. We tend to think about big issues, but athletes put a lot of strain on themselves. And I think the fact that you understand that is really, really cool.
I like the fact too earlier, just love we're pumping your tires here. I like the fact earlier too, and it's people need to hear it though. It's not easy. Example, not being the goal scorer, and you mentioned that earlier. Like your ego, you didn't say it. I'm saying this for myself, for yourself. Your ego kind of takes it like I'm not the first, I'm not the first one on Twitter, and the team took pictures and they have Billy, Tommy, Susie, whatever it is, and I'm not even there, and I'm grinding it out, and I'm at practice all the time. I'm first one in, last one out, but I didn't score the game-winning goal, but I'm the one who set up the play, blah blah. And you just kind of fall to the wayside often, let's just say, and it hurts. I'm assuming, like, right, it hurts, but you still get up the next day and you get at it because you didn't do it for a Twitter or an Instagram or a Facebook post or wherever the case may be. So that's what kind of keeps us going every day, I guess. But I'm glad you mentioned that because there's a lot more of those people in life than there are the goal scorers, my opinion.
And I think one of the hardest things is just figuring that out.
Oh yeah.
I think
without taking other people down. Yeah. Exactly. Right. It's not their fault. They score goals. Congratulations. It doesn't mean I have to take you down from it.
Yeah. I'll never forget actually, and this is totally going away from hockey, but when I got a silver medal at OFSA in the 800, and the girl who won was like absolutely amazing, went on to do like crazy, amazing things. And right after the race, like I went straight up to her and I'm like, shake her hand. I'm in grade 9. So everyone's like, most girls are like, oh, I can't believe she beat me. And I like went up to her and I'm like, wow, like that was such a great race. And she kind of looked at me shocked. like normally other girls don't come up to me and like really care to say great race. And I spoke with her, like her name's Emily. I spoke with her for a while after. And those are one of those moments where I'm like, I wasn't number one. Okay. I was number two, but like, that was an experience to learn from. I have a lot to learn from her. So just a little, there's always those learning.
Now, if for our listeners that aren't track and field people, the 800, you're talking about, like, I just ran 800, won a silver medal. The 800, in my opinion, nobody volunteers to be the 800 runner. I've never coached a track team where somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, Mess, put me in the 800." I even made my own kid run the 800. Paige, if you ask Paige, she was like,
Poor Paige.
Yeah. She asked me, and I tried to get Lauren to run the 800. She's like, "No way." But yeah, just an office silver medal in the 800. That's for American listeners, that's a state championship. So that's pretty darn good in one of the toughest races in the world. So good for you. Yeah, and then she was still cheery enough to go talk to the winner afterwards. Speaks a lot.
But I can't lie. Like I will say I was cheery and happy for her, and then I would like go over and see my parents and not want to talk to them because I don't want to hear "great job" with the silver medal because I wanted the gold.
Yeah.
Like, it does go both ways. I was very happy, but I also am hard enough on myself. And I mean, I don't think that's always a bad thing. I think I actually struggle. That's a hard thing for, coaches and players is when to celebrate a loss and when to dwell on a loss. I think there's power in both. It's just really finding a balance between the two.
I'm getting deep here, man. I think the 800 summarizes you. Like I'm thinking about what you guys are talking about for the 800, because 100 is just like to get it over with and everyone gets credit for it. And that's the special thing at the Olympics. And the 800 seems like, I don't know, man, you're the track people. It sucks. But you're in it for the long haul. You know what I mean? You're in for that describes you. You're in 800 period.
Okay,
there
wait,
you go.
Let's just add one more layer. Have you guys ever been on an erg, like on a rowing machine?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a 2K?
Oh yeah. It's the fitness test that I do with
my
fitness kids.
We're rowers.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
We were talking about that weren't we talking about that this weekend, G? We were talking about rowing. And
I remember like, do you come to your like chest and roll up, or do you come your chest, you come down by your belt? I'm trying to figure this stuff out myself. I don't know what I'm doing. My back hurts. My triceps hurt.
I could try to send a tutorial because I'm still working on it myself.
Okay.
But
so what's your do I even want to know what your 2K time is, Kristen?
Well, do you want to know what's funny? I still haven't done one.
Oh,
what the hell is this? We're average Joes grinding it out in our basements and our rowers. And then you're at North Carolina and haven't banged one out yet.
No, I had a lower back injury like 2 weeks ago, and they did their first 2Ks, and I didn't do it just to be safe. But we're doing like super hard training pieces to get that time down, obviously.
Yeah.
But I did we did 6Ks in the fall. So the fall is like the longer races, and the spring is the short sprints. And that was one of the most painful things I've ever done.
I'm just laughing so much. You're talking about lower back pain. Mess and I have that, and it's called from being old. We don't get these like injuries. We have that stuff every day.
She's gonna recover.
Oh my God.
I was gonna say I went to the chiropractor and I'm better now, but
so I gotta tell you, and this is a shout out to your dad, and I hope he listens to this show. Actually, no, it's not a shout out. Actually, I was kind of embarrassed. So I'm working out a lot, and I guess I'm a trainer, strength coach. I do a lot of training, and I'm posting videos. And I think it was a couple of years ago, and I posted a video, and I think I was squatting like 225 or something. I forget what I was. And then Kristen Siermachesky, you're working out with your dad, and he's like repping like 350, like nothing. And I was like, well, shit, I deleted my post. I was like, I didn't say anything. I held that inside. I was like, that jerk.
My dad.
Freak.
One of my biggest role models, but he does he'll work out really hard for a little while and then kind of, eat a lot of jubes and then work out really hard.
Sounds like a typical middle-aged man.
Oh yeah.
But it always turns out that he's in his peak shape when I get home.
Oh, I bet.
Just so we can challenge each other and work out together. And I don't think there's anything that brings him more joy than us going to the gym together. It's the best. And
I'm telling you.
over COVID, he made this whole home gym, and now we just go to the basement and work out. It's amazing.
Of course.
That's
You know,
awesome.
I think, and they must be just beside themselves. Like, you guys have had a lot. I know it's been a great journey for them. What, like, did they get a chance? Have they been down to Chapel Hill to see it all?
They have came once. They did see me row one time, and that was the one time that the waves were white capping and it was pouring rain, and they were there watching. But they're coming down for spring break in 2 weeks or whatever it is. Yeah, 2 weeks. And I'll have 2 practices a day. So they'll come watch.
So cool.
And get to see everything here. So they're pretty excited.
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have a sister. My sister is 3 years older than me. She has one son. Her and her husband their little families just living their dream in New Liskeard. Mitch, her husband was played college hockey at Canisius. So we're very relatable in that way. And then my sister played all the sports, ran track, and did all that stuff too. So
Very cool. Very cool.
So what's next? Like, I want to know, like, what, like, just don't stop. This is a good story. Like, I don't want this to end. What's next? Athletically and academically, or after you're in your master's. I don't know.
Dude, she's going after your job at Nelson. She already said it earlier.
Dude, she's going to do way better things than that. I'd love to have her. I'd turn over the reins because she's the type of leaders we need in the world, man. I'm telling you, this is what we need. We need more people like you doing the leadership roles, right?
Well, thank you. That's the hope one day. I hope academically, I'm at this amazing master's program. So the way it works, it's a 2-year program. The second year, we get to do a full-time internship. So I'll be working 100% in the UNC athletic department, which is like one of the most powerful athletic departments in Power 5, like amazing. So I'll be working with the athletic director here. I'm in the administration role. So I'll be learning about all those things, which is super exciting. So I would love, long-term, definitely to be an athletic director, have that student athlete type centered impact would be amazing. Obviously it takes a while to get there, which is something I have to digest. I need to figure out,
Yeah. How does somebody, like, obviously for me, like as an athletic director, is just like your teacher, you get the headship, but like, how does that happen in the NCAA? I've always wondered that.
Yeah. So from what I'm understanding and learning, there's a million different paths. There's no carved out way, which kind of makes it harder because it makes me think I can create my own. So any way you can get in, you need a lot of experience. But becoming an administrator of some kind. So like, I'm super interested in the sport administrator role, which means like I would oversee 4 or 5 different teams. So I'd be the coach's main contact, whatever they need in terms of facilities, travel, like all that stuff. That's kind of how you get started. And then from there you get like associate and like assistant and all that stuff. But like my athletic director at Syracuse, John Wildhack, who was again, one of my greatest mentors, he was like a production director at ESPN before he came to Syracuse. And Bubba Cunningham, who's the athletic director at UNC, was the athletic director at Notre Dame before. So like you can really come from anywhere. It gotta
kind of opens up, and then the right person falls into the job, right?
Do certain schools have female athletic directors and male, like any schools in that direction, or they all have that? How does that work?
Yeah. So like the head honcho, the athletic director themselves could be a female or a male. And you're starting to see a lot more females in that role. Like even close by here at Duke, there's a Nina King's a female.
What's
She's
Duke?
awesome.
No, I'm just kidding.
That's the right
answer. That's like swearing.
Good question.
Do I have to edit that word out?
No, it's a respectful rival. Okay. Well, kind of, but yes, a lot of there's starting to be more female athletic directors, but there's a role within the administration of every school. It's called a senior women's administrator, an SWA. And that's what I've eventually like to be before I'm an athletic director. It pretty much, an SWA is like oversees most of the Olympic sports, and SWA, they make it seem like you only oversee female sports, but no, you oversee all the Olympic sports, but you're the most senior female.
Gotcha.
I'm actually doing my thesis on this topic because I think I could go on about it forever, but that is a role, that is a title. They just say you're the senior women's administrator, go. Yet that person still has a whole other job. They're still the CFO or the CEO, or like they still have a whole other job. Whereas that could be their whole job, is overseeing those sports. They shouldn't need to do the other million things. But
anyway. Do you think, man, I don't know if I should even ask this. I will ask it. Do you think female athletics should have a female athletic, male, or who cares? What's your thoughts?
That's hard because I'm trying to go through what I think the ideal would be. I don't think it should be like by gender, but I definitely think the top needs both. I don't think any male or any female can have the perspective of each other's sports at the moment. I just don't think that's possible. But I also think if you have a collaborative athletic department, you should have a good amount of female voices and male voices and diverse different cultures and community. Like that should be something that should be easy instead of having this role that has to be a female or has to be a male.
That's probably the right feel, right? And that'd be I'm sure the top athletic departments is by committee, leadership by committee, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's the same thing. Like, again, this is what I'm learning about, so I could go on tangent about it, but it's the same thing with like a DEI counselor, like a diversity and inclusion person. It's the same thing as the SWA. They pretty much just said that you need to place this name on someone instead of actually hiring someone and giving them the resources and the actual role to put different programs into place to help DEI. No, you're just placing a name on their title.
Performative activism. It's unfortunate, and it's funny because I've seen some inequities this year in some schools.
I was just about to go there. Go ahead.
Were you?
Oh yeah.
Well, I just saying, like I know that some NCAA schools, like the men's team have a stick room and the women's team doesn't have a stick room. How does that happen? Right? Like, how's that fair? Like, it doesn't make sense. Or they have a goalie coach and they don't have a goalie coach. I don't get that. Why is that fair? And what, like Title IX. So have you done a lot of work with Title IX stuff?
Yeah. So definitely no expert, but from what we've learned, it's all about opportunity. So if the females have the same opportunity as the men, then it's kind of evened out. But I mean, you can't place basketball or football in those realms in Division I at all. They're just at their own. But technically, they have the same scholarship-wise. They have the same opportunity as the females on the rowing team because they have an equal amount of. It doesn't have to be an equal amount of money. It has to be opportunity. So,
gotcha.
Whatever that means,
it's left open to interpretation, I would imagine, by various parties. So leave it at that.
Scary sometimes, but yes.
Gee, you look like you were going to jump in.
Yeah, no, I'm just happy for female athletes right now, or because I'm just thinking what the future will look like with Kristen doing the things she's doing. I have no daughters or anything like that in there, but I can just see you being impactful. And I've met you for maybe an hour now. I can just see you being impactful, and that's what I'd love to see my face when she was talking at this last part, because it just hit me. I was like, man, she's going to do something that's kind of maybe change things in a positive way. So that's what that face was.
Well, thanks. I mean, like, why can't I struggle between like thinking that there should be an NCAA for women and an NCAA for men, because I don't think there always needs to be a divide, but sometimes there does. I don't know.
And that's okay.
Yeah. And the answer is out there somewhere.
Like not knowing though.
Yeah.
Like Mark and I today watched women's professional hockey finals. But, again, I didn't tell you that, Mark, but I'm, watching, and it's just an average rink, to be honest with you. Why isn't it in a bigger rink? Why isn't there more people? Why isn't it? I don't know. I just find that a little unfortunate, to be honest with you.
That was sad. It was really like it was in it looked like watching a live stream on TV, and it was just the cameras are fake. Like it wasn't really set up to be. They should have had that in an NHL rink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And the saddest thing is, so many things come down to money. But I mean, sometimes you got to get creative with how you make it.
Yeah.
You might need different sponsors that you don't expect for a male team. You might need to dig into those individual, I don't know.
So, you guys are opening the can. I didn't do it. So we talk about like the Olympics. It was great for female hockey. It was amazing for female hockey. So kind of maybe jump on that train, if that makes any sense. I deal with it in baseball, where people used to say in the community, used to say, well, when the Blue Jays are doing well, our enrollment is good in minor sports, but my rebuttal to that is, why are we waiting for something to be successful for us? It's our jobs. We're the ones in the trenches every single day. We're not a major league team. We're not the Olympics every 4 years. We're literally in this every single minute of every single day. It's our responsibility to make this a success every time. So either when a girl laces up skates and goes on the ice, or for my case, girl, guy, whatever it is, coming on the baseball field, make them feel welcome, make it the funnest day they've ever had in their lives. And then that's on us. That's not on the Blue Jays. That's not on the women's Olympic team. That's on us. Like literally every coach out there right now. Okay, I got fired up there. I'm good for now.
I love it when you get fired up about girl sports. It's great.
I also think if you could give every person that walks through your door, whether it's your office or your locker room, if you can give them an experience that they can step out with something new and something better than how they came in, I think you've achieved your goal. I mean, it doesn't even have to be, if they've learned something from a teammate or a coach or a parent tying skates beside you, like if you've learned something, you can step out of that room better than you came in. And I feel like if you can do that every day, wouldn't that be amazing? One
of our mottos, better today than yesterday, better tomorrow than today. That's one of the things we say to a lot of people that we work with. It's just, you're just trying. And it's funny because we talk about like, people are like, this Messier's doing a podcast. Like I saw that guy yelling at a ref. Like, yeah, like that was me 2.0, 1.0, 3.0, 20.0. You learn and you get these experiences as you go, and you're starting like, hey, I like how this coach operates. They're a good human being. I want to be more like that. You pull from different experiences that you have to make you better in the right way, right?
Yeah. And I think, specifically to coaching, I've had amazing coaches, like all across the board, from my dad to yourself to like Stacy to Brian, like Paul, all these people, and like Aaron now, totally changing sports, but every single one of those leaders have common denominators in wanting us to learn new things and be better holistic people. And I think if I've learned anything in these last couple months from Aaron, it's like, yeah, you might not have the perfect technique in rowing, but like you're vital to this. And like this other girl who's great and doesn't have the greatest attitude, yeah, she's vital, but you guys have to, be the puzzle pieces to fit together.
You don't have to be best friends, but you got to coexist and pull on the same rope in the same direction for the team.
Yeah.
For sure. And I like learning from other coaches. John, remember I was telling you the story today about how I got into coaching lacrosse. Like Lauren had transitioned from soccer to lacrosse because she wanted to try something different. And I was sitting there, I was like, great, I'll go watch lacrosse. And she was in the tryouts and the coach came over. He's like, you're going to help me coach this team. I was like, I know nothing about lacrosse. And he says, I know nothing about coaching girls. So I was like, oh my God. Anyway, so it worked out so good that I enjoyed learning from this person who was a master at lacrosse and coaching the sport. And I loved his passion. He brought the passion to the game and the knowledge and everything like that. So, it's one of those things, if you're willing to learn and have that growth mindset, that elite mindset of wanting to get better, it's going to help you in all phases of your life and you'll grow as a person.
For sure.
I'm not sure I still know anything about lacrosse, but I had a great time doing it. But it's a lot of fun. You got to step out your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if I don't know. I'm mixed emotions with your new camera.
You don't like it?
I do. I don't know, but it's just I'm used to the other one. I got to get used to this new one.
I know.
He's got a new camera now. I'm sure he didn't talk about his camera.
My other laptop was doomed. I had to get rid of it. So now it's a new setup. So this is the maiden voyage. So
yeah, you're like HDMI. You're like super crystal clear now.
That could be a bad thing. How's my skin?
I know. That's what I'm looking at right now. It's super reflective.
Oh boy. So
sorry, I went on a tangent, Kristen. My bad.
Oh.
So, oh man, again, so much, 3 years, a lot of times to cover. So if you, okay, now Jean-Gilles talked about like going back in the freshman part, like if you had to go back and do it again, like, so I want similar question, but different. If you had to go back and give yourself advice in your freshman year, what would you say? What would you say to 18-year-old Kristen?
I think I would say, don't worry about it.
Okay.
And I know there's so many people out there that are the exact same as me that, every test, I'm going to worry about it until I get the grade back, or every play, I can't just get rid of it in my head. Like sometimes, no, all the time, you have to realize that there's a time to worry about it and there's a time not to. And I would say, don't worry about it as much.
Nice.
Love it. I love it.
I know we're concluding here. My thing is like, I can't believe you remember the 4 times you weren't feeling up to yourself. Who remembers? I remember there was 4 times. Like, I probably have 4 times in a day.
But literally, and obviously there's been way more than that, but those 4 times, like there was a solid amount of girls that came up to me and like, are you okay, Chris? Never forget. Like,
that's classic.
And don't get me wrong, there's many more times where I'm not.
Yeah. But still a classic. I'm still going to use that story anyways.
Yeah.
I love it.
But sometimes.
I mean, Kristen, she's only been upset 4 times.
Oh, man. That's so good. Okay. So Kristen, one of the things we do on all of our shows is we ask our guests if there's one thing, because this is our homework, and your mom will appreciate this as an educator. And JG and I are both teachers, so we give our listeners homework for each episode. And our guests, we like to ask them, like, what's the best piece of leadership advice you could think of, or what's the best resource that you've had, or what something along leadership that you would want to share, you feel is the must that you would want to share with our leaders to reflect on for this week?
Okay. I feel like this is the biggest question of them all. Find a mentor and lean on them and meet with them when you don't think you have to. I think, at Syracuse and even now I have a mentor that I meet with. I have mentors that I meet with like, once a month. And there's so many times where I just want to text them and say, I have way too many things going on. Can we meet next month? And those are the calls that you get the most out of. That's when you realize that you needed to hear about you needed to tell someone about a certain situation, or, you needed to fit that time in. So find a mentor, someone that knows you from the core, but also doesn't know everything about you. You can teach them things about yourself too. Find a mentor, lean on them, and meet with them consistently. That would be my homework.
Great advice. Very good advice.
G, anything else?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see, I want to see what things look like for Kristen in 3 years, 5 years. Like I'm literally looking forward to seeing where this goes for you. And good luck.
Can I ask, Kristen, before we sign off here, can I ask, rowing, are we thinking potentially, are we putting up some national team numbers? Maybe Summer Olympics, maybe?
I did get a cool call from the development camp that I'm on their board. I'm on their reference sheet. So hopefully I'll be able to.
If you went to the Olympics, I'd be like, yeah, not for sure. No shock.
Emma Winter Olympics. I'll go in the summer.
Oh my God.
Maybe she'll be in the summer again. You never know.
Carve out time. Don't forget, don't get too big for us. Carve out time for us.
Yes. Because we have to have the post podcast as well. Like the follow up is big for us, right?
We'll still be bald. We'll still be bald and lower back pain.
And I might have better lighting by then.
I will say one of the most powerful things in terms of resources too is listening to people that have different experiences than you. Like I'd love to listen to your guys' podcast because you're coming from total different experiences than I came from and whatever I've been through, and just totally different experiences just listen to them because you definitely draw conclusions with everything that people go through.
Dr. Ho has been really good for my lower back. Mark, what have you been using?
Hey, no more free ads. No more free ads.
I know. I thought of that. I was like, should I use something else generic, or like I'm gonna pump up Dr. Ho and he's gonna sell more now.
Kristen, we draw a lot from our guests because this is one of the reasons we like it. Even though JG and I both have our own experiences in life and coaching and playing and teaching, this is why we wanted guests on our show, because we didn't want to just have this, you look, it's like being inside of a well and you look up and you just see your little slice of the sky. We want to see the whole sky. And that's why we want people from all different areas, and you cover so many bases of that, and you're just an awesome person to talk to.
Thank you so much.
Well, that does
here we go.
Oh, wait, you know what? I don't know why. This is another one. I don't want this to end. Well, that does it for this episode of Benchmarked. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
Keep crushing it.
Yes, that could have been one of our best ones ever. I love it.
Oh, man, that's classic.